Hello, a very good evening. Thanks for joining us. The polls have just closed in Germany in one of the country's most important elections so far this century. At stake, Germany's struggling economy, its relationship with Ukraine and Russia, its attitude to the Trump administration, and what policy will it adopt towards migrants. It's likely that two or more parties will form a coalition. But which parties? The opposition leader, Friedrich Merz, is expected to be the new chancellor, but it's the far-right party, the AfD, which has everyone taking notice. Well, let's bring in our Europe correspondents. Both are in Berlin for us this evening. Siobhan Robbins is with the Christian Democratic Union Party, seen by many as favourite to get most votes, while Adam Parsons is with the AfD party, which appears to have campaigned strongly. And with me in the studio, Dr. Isabel Hertner, researcher of European party politics and director of King Centre for German Transnational Relations. So, to Siobhan first, polls suggest the CDU will get the most votes, but that's not the end of the story.
No, that's right. And within seconds of the vote closing, we've already started getting initial exit polls. Now, these are initial results. They're not confirmed yet. They're projections, basically. And what they are saying is what we've really heard for weeks now, that it appears that the Conservative bloc with the Christian Democrats, where I am, and their Bavarian sisters, the CSU, have got the largest share of the vote, predicted at the moment around 29%. Now, controversially, for some in Germany, coming second at the moment is the AfD. They are the far-right party. Exit polls initially showing they've got 19.5%. In third place are the Social Democrats. That's the party of the current Chancellor, Olaf Scholz, on around 16%. And then the Greens. So what happens now? Well, of course, these results will need to be confirmed. But then, basically, in the next hours and days and weeks, we will see a lot of horse trading to try and form a government. So given that the CDU, where I am, and their sisters have the largest share, they're going to be sort of in the pole position to form that government. They do not have, with 29% of the vote, they do not have a majority, so they will need to go into coalition. Now, they could look to the Greens or the SPD to try and do that, but we know there's going to be pushback because the AfD, in the run-up to this election, has been saying if they come second, which I have to underline is the best result for a far-right party since the Nazi party. If they came second, they were saying that basically it would be undemocratic to keep them out of government. The problem for them is that there's a long-standing agreement here in Germany which says that parties, mainstream parties, will not work with the far right, and it's highly unlikely. Friedrich Merz, who we're expecting to become Chancellor, has said he will not work with them. So it's highly unlikely that they would be invited into any coalition. So what's going to happen there? Well, when I spoke to far-right protesters yesterday, they said if this result, which we're expecting, was confirmed, they'd go out into the streets. So we can expect potential protests. Just seeing some more reaction here. What we haven't seen yet is Friedrich Merz. He's expected to come here to give a speech to start laying the way. But as I say, this is really just the start of quite a long path to power. To give you an impression of how long these things can take, in the last election, it was September when people voted. It was December when we heard who the new Chancellor would be.
And Siobhan, it is going to be many days, potentially longer, as you say, for a new government to form. Just remind us why these elections are happening now, 7 months before they were due.
Yes, so as you say, we're expecting to have an election in September, but basically there was a former government which was a coalition between three parties. It had a big problem with infighting, so there were the SPDs, the Greens, and the FDP party, and basically they had massive infighting, and the thing that brought them down was a fight about strict debt rolls. One of the parties was sacked, the leader of the party was sacked, and then there was a vote of confidence in Olaf Scholz. The current Chancellor, he lost that, which sparked these early elections. But there are big problems coming down the track and also already being experienced by Germany. There's an ailing economy. They're in their second year of recession. They need to build their military, particularly given the wavering that appears to be coming from the US around continuing to protect Europe and to work with Ukraine. There's big question marks around that. Germany is the biggest backer of Ukraine outside America, so we'll be looking at that closely. There are issues around migration. We've seen those issues feed in to the far right and bolster their support. So if Friedrich Merz is the next chancellor, he's going to really need to get on that quickly, and he's already been trying to do that when he's been on that campaign trail. So, for example, his party and him have been putting forward more right-wing solutions to what they see as a migration problem. For example, suggesting that they can put permanent checks on the border. And there are other issues as well to contend with. Namely, this rise of the far right. It can't be totally sort of spoken down as just suggesting this is a protest by people in Germany. We've travelled around Germany over the last, 3 years, but also in the months running up to this election. And so many people have told us that they are voting for them, not just because they're fed up with mainstream parties, but they really feel that Germany needs to change, that their voices aren't being heard around jobs, around migration, around the direction this country's going in. And so, really, the next government needs to try and fix a broken country.
OK, Siobhan, for now, thank you very much. So the breaking news then this hour looks likely former Chancellor Angela Merkel's CDU party is likely to win power under leader Friedrich Merz. The exit poll suggests they'll get 29% of the vote. The far-right Alternative for Germany, or AfD party, led by Alice Weidel, has surged in popularity. The exit polls predict they'll come second with around 20% of the vote, and Chancellor Olaf Scholz's Social Democratic Party looks to be in third place with 16.5%, and the Greens in fourth with 12%. These are the exit polls. Let's speak to Adam Parsons, who is with the AfD, and all eyes will be on them this evening, Adam, and whether their often controversial message has landed.
To that controversy is probably represented here. So I'm just between where the AfD officials are gathering, down there, the other side of this police line. You can see there's quite a significant line of police officers, police vans going down into the distance. And that cacophony of noise you can hear is coming from over there. This is a protest bus that has been brought Berlin and as you can see, there's more police officers coming down now, and let's just move out of the way. So you can just see some of these protesters there have just been pushed to the ground. We had expected some sort of clash here. Effectively, these are the anti-AfD protesters who have been waiting here, and at the stroke of 5 o'clock local time, launch these air raid siren noises, and it looks as if, I can see right now the police are going into that bus to stop the noise. The air raid siren you can hear has just gone off, and you can hear that chanting against the police. Now that bus has been broadcasting what I have to say is a fairly foul-mouthed tirade against the AfD. There have been allegations from these people, calling them neo-Nazis. This is exactly why the AfD, the Alternative for Deutschland, is such a controversial movement in German politics, because it has synthesized a slice of anger in German society, a sort of anti-establishment voice, anti-migration, and in some ways completely unapologetic in its messages. Alice Weidel, the Chancellor candidate, has talked of remigration. In other words, she hasn't defined it, but that is an idea of enforced migration of even German citizens with migrant origins who are deemed to not be worthy of their place in German society back to some amorphous country of origin. She's anti-climate change. She is a great mate suddenly of Elon Musk, who rolled in behind her. And these people here, as well as the AfD supporters over there, have been anxiously looking tonight at these results. Now, we're predicting, according to these exit polls, that the AfD will get, what, something just under maybe 20%, around 20%. At the last election, they polled 10%. So, how do you interpret that? Well, on the one hand, the AfD will say they've doubled their vote share. On the other, these people will say they haven't got more. And crucially, when you look at the arithmetic that's already coming out tonight, it would seem that a coalition will be able to be formed. For instance, off the top of my head, the Social Democrats, the CDU and the Greens potentially could form a governing coalition without involving the AfD.